Hello and welcome back. I'm reading Emma. I'm reading on my channel. This is a channel where I do read, and I'm fumbling through the English lit ideas because I even was like, oh yeah, that's what it was called in Mansfield Park. It was called third person. She did a lot of third person there, and it was the first time it was introduced, and that's what I was trying to say, but I don't have the words for that. I'm just not skilled at like, oh, third person, first person. This is all second person. I'm so bad at it. But I do have videos for people to reference because I do like hearing about it. And I did just watch one by that woman, Dr. Octavia Cox, who I think is an English literature person. And she was talking about a passage that we had already done did read. She was talking about a passage that we done did read in Emma already about, and I remember clocking it thinking this is fascinating. Let's read. Okay, just bear with me for 2 secs while I just want to get these words out of my mouth because I want to, brain to mouth them and have it on record so I can go back and listen to it. But I'm probably not going to. I'm probably just going to go back and listen to the other person to talk about it. And I will post the videos that I mention at the end so you can just listen to that person talk. We'll get to reading soon. But in the very beginning of the chapter, the very beginning of the book, chapter 1, it says, Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, and rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition, seemed to unite some of the best blessings of existence, and had lived nearly 21 years in the world with very little to distress or vex her. And the word seemed did catch my eye, where I was like, it seems that she has all these things together and for herself, but is that true? And the woman in the video, Dr. Cox, was talking about how this is a mystery and we're getting clues along the way, and we're seeing the perspective of Emma, and then she hears stuff from other people and she's like, crazy that he said that. So we have this perspective from her, but it's almost like a Sarah J Maas thing where like things are being hidden from us also, and we're just like picking up these little breadcrumb clues. So I'm understanding that more because everybody's like, it's a mystery. E.D. Cummings or whomever was saying it's a mystery and it's the best mystery of her time, whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, it's a mystery, but I just never fully understood it until I watched that video. And there's another one that I started watching just right before this, and it's an hour long, and it's called Life and Work of Jane Austen by Lorraine Murphy from Hillsdale College. And she also, her very first quote from her in her lecture was about Emma. So I'm getting into it. I'm getting into the book. I'm viewing some things. I'm viewing things about it. But what was the passage that was like, we could take it three ways. We could take it that Mr. Knightley was giving Emma a hard time, and Emma was like, pretentious people are blind to facts, poor Mr. Knightley. But as readers, we're like, poor Emma, we can clearly see that Mr. Knightley is right and you should take your own advice. But then Jane Austen is telling us readers to take Mr. Knightley's advice also, and like make sure that, do some inner work. It's brilliant. Do some inner work of our own and make sure we're not judging or where our perceptions are, and check in with ourselves. That was very clever idea. And that's like Jane Austen's brilliance, is she's like talking to us through her characters. And now I'm wondering, she was like she was at a church one morning, and they were talking about, the clergy person was talking about like, judge lest ye be judged. Was that Shawshank Redemption? Judge, yes, lest ye be judged. Do not judge lest ye be judged. Or some sort of sermon like that, where I was talking about not an eye for an eye, but what's that thing called? Don't throw stones in glass houses. Or I just wonder if she like heard this idea and then she was like, oh, I want to tell my readers that, but I want to tell it through a character. What's the character that I can tell it through? And then this became the book. Emma is a book about do not judge lest ye judge. I don't know why I'm doing it with that accent, but I think it's from a movie, that a Shawshank Redemption or something. Those are all my thoughts and feelings. I also am thinking like, okay, we have the idea of rich men and rich men inherit things. I'm wondering how Emma is even rich. Like, how is she rich? Is there nobody to inherit and so she just ends up getting it all? Or she just has a big dowry? Or how is she rich? That's my question I want to know. How is Emma so rich since she's a female? Just because her dad is rich. And then what happens when her dad dies? Because we've heard about that in every book so far. Like, a dad is going to die and somebody's going to inherit, and thankfully there's men, or there's no boys in the family, and so all the girls have to have this house entailed. Like, how is she rich? And because she's rich and thinks highly of herself, only women who are rich feel entitled to like be busybodies in other people's lives, but rich men just want wives. Like, is that another part of the irony of like, well, we've heard all these rich men and they do whatever they do and hunt and do whatever, but women are like very much mingled in other people's lives? And is there discourse on that? I don't know. Because I still don't really know the ins and outs of this time and like how is she rich? What were women who were rich really like? Were they just like busybodies like this? She did say that she does think very highly of herself and she just wants to be a matchmaker, and that's just what she's going to do no matter how bad she is at it but thinks she's good at it. It's the folly and the what was the word that she used? Oh, shucks. God, I'm bad with words. Hold on. Blunder, that she is blind to her own terribleness. And I have terribleness, and I can't judge Emma because I have to take care of my own terribleness. Thank you, Jane Austen. Thank you, Jane Austen, for teaching me the ways. She is like a Taoist. This is the way, the Jane Austen way. I am surprised there is not a Jane Austen religion because she's pulling from so many amazing religions. From what I know about religion, which is not much. We're on chapter, what is it? XIV, which is 14. Sorry, that's always a struggle for me. Do not judge, lest ye judge. Okay. What just happened? I do want to recap myself because Christmas. They went to Mr. and Mrs. Weston's for Christmas. And, freaking John, Mr. Knightley is not happy about it. He said, how dare people pull me away from my perfectly good fire, and now I have to go through snow and sticky snow, and these poor horses are going to slip and die just to go to your barely warm fire. So it's about to be Christmas, so let's see what happens at Christmas. And let's see if we can tell if Emma seems like what her perception is of herself. And all the words like seems. She seemed to think this. It is not entirely so, perhaps. Chapter 14. Some change of countenance was necessary for each gentleman as they walked into Mrs. Weston's drawing room. Boy, even just there, I do have to change my countenance before I enter a room sometimes, huh? Good point. This is what I'm saying. Change your countenance before you enter a room. Mr. Elton must compose his joyous looks, and Mr. John Knightley disperse his ill humour. Mr. Elton must smile less, and Mr. John Knightley more. to fit them for the place. Mr. John Knightley has to smile more. Got it. Emma only might... Oh, no. Yeah. Emma only might be as nature promoted and show herself just as happy as she was. Maybe or maybe not. Emma thinks that of herself, that she's perfect. Fascinating. I'm getting it now. I'm onto it. I get it. To her, it was real enjoyment to be with the Westons. Mr. Weston was a great favourite, and there was not a creature in the world to whom she spoke with such unreserve as to his wife, Miss Taylor, who used to be her governess and is now her friend, but is now grown up, and she got them together, Mr. and Mrs. Weston, and Mr. Woodhouse, Emma's dad, is not happy about it. Poor Miss Taylor, he says. This is such a good book. Okay. This is a great favourite, and there was not a creature that attend to his wife. Not anyone to whom she related with such conviction of being listened to and understood, of being always interesting and also intelligible, the little affairs, arrangements, perplexities, and pleasures of her father and herself. With such conviction of being listened to. She loves somebody who can listen to her and understand her. Well, that's kind of all of us, I'd say. But that's interesting that she says, somebody will listen to me. She could tell nothing of Hartfield in which Mrs. Weston had not a lively concern, and half an hour's uninterrupted communication of all those little matters on which the daily happiness of private life depends was one of the first gratifications of each. The daily happiness of private life depends about all the little matters and little concerns of Hartfield. That's cute. This was a pleasure which perhaps the whole day's visit might not afford, which certainly did not belong to the present half hour, but the very sight of Mrs. Weston, her smile, her touch, her voice, was grateful to Emma, and she determined to think as little as possible of Mr. Elton's oddities, or of anything else unpleasant, and enjoy all that was enjoyable to the utmost. Oh, shucks. What was that thing called that was in the Epicurism? Just enjoy what is enjoyable, and don't do anything that's not enjoyable, and YOLO. Epicurism is YOLO. God, I think that was popular when I was literally graduating high school, which was in 2003. The misfortune of Harriet's cold had been pretty well gone through before her arrival, but Mr. Woodhouse had been safely seated long enough to give the history of it, besides all the history of his own and Isabella's coming, and of Emma's being to follow, and had indeed just got to the end of his satisfaction that James should come and see his daughter, when the others appeared, and Mrs. Weston, who had been almost wholly engrossed by her attentions to him, was able to turn away and welcome her dear Emma. Emma's project of forgetting Mr. Elton for a while made her rather sorry to find, when they had all taken their places, that he was close to her. Interesting. The difficulty was great of driving his strange insensibility towards Harriet from her mind, while he not only sat at her elbow, but was continually obtruding his happy countenance on her notice, and solicitously addressing her upon every occasion. Well, Emma? Instead of forgetting him, his behaviour was such that she could not avoid the internal suggestion of, can it really be as my brother imagined? Can it be possible for this man to be beginning to transfer his affections from Harriet to me? Absurd and insufferable. There's been a transference of nothing. He liked you from the beginning. Yet he would be so anxious for her being perfectly warm, would be so interested about her father, and so delighted with Mrs. Weston, and at last would begin admiring her drawings with so much zeal and so little knowledge as seemed terribly like a would-be lover, and made it some effort with her to preserve her good manners. For her own sake she could not be rude, and for Harriet's, in the hope that all would yet turn out right, she was even positively civil. But it was an effort, especially as something was going on amongst the others in the most overpowering period of Mr. Elton's nonsense, which she particularly wished to listen to. She heard enough to know that Mr. Weston was giving some information about his son. She heard the words "my son" and "Frank" and "my son" repeated several times over, and from a few other half-syllables very much suspected that he was announcing an early visit from his son. But before she could quiet Mr. Elton, the subject was so completely past that any reviving question from her would have been awkward. That's probably not true either. Now it so happened that in spite of Emma's resolution of never marrying, there was something in the name, in the idea of Mr. Frank Churchill, which always interested her. She had frequently thought, especially since his father's marriage with Miss Taylor, that if she were to marry, he was the very person to suit her in age. Oh, his father is Frank Churchill's. Okay, not her own father. His father's marriage was that if she were to marry, he was the very person to suit her in age, character, and condition. She's never met the man. Has she never met the man, and she thinks this? Curious. He seemed by this connection between the families quite to belong to her. Whoa. She could not but suppose it to be a match that everybody who knew them must think of, that Mr. and Mrs. Weston did think of it, that she was very strongly persuaded, and though not meaning to be induced by him or by anybody else, to give up a situation which she believed more replete with good than any. What is replete? She believed more replete with good than any she could change it for. She had a great curiosity to see him, a decided intention of finding him pleasant, of being liked by him to a certain degree, and a sort of pleasure in the idea of their being coupled in their friend's imagination. Ooh, she's thinking about other people's imaginations of her and him together. Replete. Filled or well supplied with something, very full or very full with good. Oh, okay. She believed more replete. Wow. Replete. Replete with adultery and sudden death. Oh. Okay. With such sensations, Mr. Elton's civilities were dreadfully ill-timed, but she had the comfort of appearing very polite while feeling very cross, and of thinking that the rest of the visit could not possibly pass without bringing forward the same information again, or the substance of it, from the open-hearted Mr. Weston. And so it proved. For when happily released from Mr. Elton and seated by Mr. Weston at dinner, he made use of the very first interval in the cares of hospitality, the very first leisure from the saddle of mutton, to say to her, "We want only 2 more to be just the right number. I should like to see 2 more here, your pretty little friend Miss Smith, and my son, and then I should say we were quite complete. I believe you did not hear me telling the others in the drawing-room that we are expecting Frank. I had a letter from him this morning, and he will be with us within a fortnight." So he noticed that Mr. Elton was talking to Emma. Interesting. Emma spoke with a very proper degree of pleasure. That's really, everything from her perspective is like perfect and very proper, and the proper amount of happiness while feeling cross, and she's very good at that. I like that. Emma spoke with a very proper degree of pleasure, and fully assented to his proposition of Mr. Frank Churchill and Miss Smith making their party quite complete. He has been wanting to come to us, continued Mr. Weston, ever since September. Every letter has been full of it, but he cannot command his own time. He has those to please who must be pleased, and who, between ourselves, are sometimes to be pleased only by a good many sacrifices. Whoa, she's so good at describing people that you literally are like, I know a person like that. It feels so, I mean, I know she was a person in real life and probably met these people, and these people have been around forever, but it is so interesting how well she's captured them, and you're like, I can never describe it like that, but that's it perfectly. He has those to please who must be pleased, and who are sometimes to be pleased only by a good many sacrifices. We call those energy vampires. But now I have no doubt of seeing him here about the second week in January. What a very great pleasure it will be to you, and Mrs. Weston is so anxious to be acquainted with him that we must be almost as happy as yourself. Yes, she would be, but she thinks there will be another put-off. She does not depend upon him coming so much as I do, but she does not know the parties so well as I do. The case, you see, is, but this is quite between ourselves, I did not mention a syllable of it in the other room. There are secrets in all families, you know. The case is that a part of friends are invited to pay a visit at Escombe in January, and that Frank's coming depends upon their being put off. If they are not put off, he cannot stir. But I know they will, because it is a family that a certain lady of some consequence at Escombe has a particular dislike to, and though it is thought necessary to invite them once in 2 or 3 years, they are always put off when it comes to the point. I know people like that, too. I have not the smallest doubt of the issue. I am confident of seeing Frank here before the middle of January, as I am of being here myself. But your good friend there, nodding towards the upper end of the table, has so few vagaries? Shoot. Vagaries.
Vagary.
Okay. An unexpected and inexplicable change in situation or in someone's behavior. The vagary of the weather. It's like variety? Not variety, but, okay, vagary. Unpredictable or erratic action, occurrence, course, or instance. She but has so few vagaries herself, and has been so little used to them at Hartfield that she cannot calculate on their effects, as I have been long in the practice of doing. She's just not used to things being so, like, varied. Like, you have friends who are like, I'm gonna go, I can't go. I'm gonna go, I can't go. And you just kind of get used to it. I am so sorry there should be anything like doubt in the case, replied Emma, but I am disposed to side with you, Mr. Weston. If you think he will come, I shall think so too, for you know Escombe. Yes, I have some right to that knowledge, though I have never been at the place in my life. She is an odd woman, but I never allow myself to speak ill of her on Frank's account, for I do believe her to be very fond of him. I used to think she was not capable of being fond of anybody except herself, but she has always been kind to him, in her way, allowing for little whims and caprices, and expecting everything to be as she likes. And it is no small credit, in my opinion, to him that he should excite such affection, for though I would not say it to anybody else, she has no more heart than a stone to people in general, and the devil of a temper. Emma liked the subject so well that she began upon it to Mrs. Weston very soon after their moving into the drawing-room, wishing her joy, yet observing that she knew the first meeting must be rather alarming. Mrs. Weston agreed to it, but added that she should be very glad to be secure of undergoing the anxiety of the first meeting at the time talked of, for I cannot depend upon his coming. I cannot be so sanguine as Mr. Weston. I am very much afraid that it will all end in nothing. Mr. Weston, I dare say, has been telling you exactly how the matter stands. Yes, it seems to depend upon nothing but the ill humour of Mrs. Churchill, which I imagine to be the most certain thing in the world. My Emma, replied Mrs. Weston, smiling, what is the certainty of caprice? Then, turning to Isabella, who had not been attending before, You must know, my dear Mrs. Knightley, that we are by no means so sure of seeing Mr. Frank Churchill, in my opinion, as his father thinks. It depends entirely upon his aunt's spirits and pleasure. In short, upon her temper. The devil of a temper. To you, to my 2 daughters, I may venture on the truth. Mrs. Churchill rules at Escombe, and is a very odd-tempered woman, and his coming now depends upon her being willing to spare him. Oh, Mrs. Churchill, everybody knows Mrs. Churchill, everybody knows Mrs. Churchill, replied Isabella, and I am sure I never think of that poor young man without the greatest compassion. To be constantly living with an ill-tempered person must be dreadful. It is what we happily have never known of anything of, but it must be a life of misery. What a blessing that she never had any children. Poor little creatures, how unhappy she would have made them. Oh my God. Emma wished she had been alone with Mrs. Weston. She should then have heard more. Mrs. Weston would speak to her with a degree of unreserve which she would not hazard with Isabella, and she really believed would scarcely try to conceal anything relative to the Churchills from her, excepting those views on the young man, of which her own imagination had already given her such instinctive knowledge. But at present there was nothing more to be said. Mr. Woodhouse very soon followed them into the drawing-room. To be sitting long after dinner was a confinement that he could not endure. Neither wine nor conversation was anything to him, and gladly did he move to those with whom he was always comfortable. While he talked to Isabella, however, Emma found an opportunity of saying, And so you do not consider this visit from your son as by any means certain. I am sorry for it. The introduction must be unpleasant whenever it takes place, and the sooner it could be over, the better. Yes, and every delay. Wow, yes, semicolon. Yes, semicolon. Why do I feel like I would have gotten in trouble for that? Yes is just a complete sentence. Yes. Yes, semicolon. And every delay makes one more apprehensive of other delays. Even if this family, the Braithwaites. Oh my God. That is such a crazy name. Braithwaites. Even if this family, the Braithwaites, are put off, I am still afraid that some excuse may be found for disappointing us. I cannot bear to imagine any reluctance on his side, but I am sure there is a great wish on the Churchills to keep him to themselves. There is jealousy. They are jealous even of his regard for his father. In short, I can feel no dependence on his coming, and I wish Mr. Weston were less sanguine. He ought to come, said Emma. If he could stay only a couple of days, he ought to come. And one can hardly conceive a young man's not having it in his power to do as much as that. A young woman, if she falls into bad hands, may be teased and kept at a distance from those she wants to be with. But one cannot comprehend a young man's being under such restraint as not to be able to spend a week with his father if he likes it. One ought to be at Escombe and know the ways of the family before one decides upon what he can do, replied Mrs. Weston. One ought to use the same caution, perhaps, in judging of the conduct of any one individual of any one family. But Escombe, I believe, certainly must not be judged by general rules. She is so very unreasonable, and everything gives way to her. But she is so fond of the nephew. He is so very great a favourite. Now, according to my idea of Mrs. Churchill, it would be most natural that while she makes no sacrifice for the comfort of the husband to whom she owes everything, while she exercises insensate caprice towards him, she would frequently be governed by the nephew to whom she owes nothing at all. My dearest Emma, do not pretend with your sweet temper to understand a bad one or to lay down rules for it. You must let it go its own way. I have no doubt of his having at times considerable influence, but it may be perfectly impossible for him to know beforehand when it will be.
Emma listened and then coolly said, "I shall not be satisfied unless he comes." "He may have a great deal of influence on some points," continued Mrs. Weston, "and on others very little. And among those on which she is beyond his reach, it is but too likely, maybe this very circumstance of his coming away from them to visit."
That's the end of that chapter. Wow. Fascinating. Fascinating. You can tell when Emma speaks. She has that very, like, she's so sure of things and she won't be satisfied until. This is a fun book. Join me next time for chapter 15 as we read through Emma and just think about what we're thinking about. See what we see, hear what we hear, and think about what we're going to think about. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Happy reading, and ta-ta.